game begin.
My name is Maximus Decimus Meridius.
I am your father.
You like Huey Lewis on the news?
Yes. And you're not sure about this, are you?
You're gonna die, clown!
What's the most you ever lost on a coin toss?
Sam?
The most you ever lost on a coin toss. Call it.
Whose motorcycle is this?
It's a chopper, baby.
Whose chopper is this?
Zed's.
Who's Zed?
Zed's dead, baby.
Bring out today!
This is a tasty burger.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
Welcome to the fucking show.
Hello. Welcome back to See What Sticks, a podcast about everything and nothing. I'm your host, Russell.
I'm your co-host, Ben.
And Ben is back for his fourth consecutive episode. And Ben is like the second Emma now to the show. Emma's been really busy, so Ben is the he's the go-to guy. Ben is the he's the new other patriarch of the podcast. That's Ben's new
Keeping the seat warm.
What's up?
So keeping the seat warm while Emma's off doing her thing.
Yeah, let's hope we can get a 3-person podcast going soon, because I think that would be pretty sweet to have. Like, I've never done it on the show, partially because I'm bad with technology, and the way I record the show, for all of you who don't know, is Ben and I are on like a FaceTime call, and I have it routed through a program going to my microphone, going to my headset, and going into the computer. So it does sound like it is a call. However, it's being recorded like natively on the computer. But I don't know how I would do with 3 people. I guess add another person to the call. But I feel like you'd get a lot of like crossover and stuff. I don't know. Do you know?
We'll probably just have to like try it out off the air, see how it works, and then tweak and do what we got to do to make it work.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, okay, here's something else I want to talk about that I've been up to. I want to make t-shirts for See What Sticks.
Do it.
So I want to do some that are like, the first thing I ever said on the show, on the first episode, is I'm not editing this out. I want to have like See What Sticks shirts that say that, like I'm not editing this out. I wanted to put ones that'll say I'm leaving this in, but that there's a connotation with I'm leaving this in, and I don't want to have like See What Sticks have the I'm leaving it in thing. So I was thinking about doing that, and then those shirts. I don't know, like I've seen them. So it's See What Sticks podcast about everything and nothing. I was thinking about doing ones where like the logo, and then on one arm it says everything, and the other one says nothing.
I dig it. That worked. That's pretty unique, actually.
Yeah, just something like that, like kind of like the they're like long sleeve t-shirts, but they're not like cotton. They're almost like the athletic material ones, like the
like the sweat wicking style. Yeah.
Like I know Purdue has ones like that. It says like Boiler Up on one arm. It says like Purdue and Boiler Up or something. I was thinking about doing ones to say everything and nothing, which would be pretty cool. So I do want to do See What Sticks shirts. Get some brand recognition.
Yeah, well, we'll grow the empire, start selling some shirts, shipping them nationwide.
Oh, 100%. This is going to be a complete empire. It's going to be a household name before you know it. But yeah, you guys heard it here first. We're taking over. So on the podcast this week, we're going to follow or continue a trend of talking about movies and culture and our opinions, whether they be like wanted or not, and we're just going to talk about it because that's what we like doing here, is just saying things and not being the authority on anything or not having the real facts. So Ben, what is the topic for this week?
We're talking about television and film remakes, reboots, reimaginings, just re-re-res all the way around, basically.
Yeah. So let's what's the first one you have that has come to mind? Let's start with ones that have been remade, and then from the have been remade, what are good and what is not.
Okay. The first thing that I thought of that came to mind, probably because it's been the most recent installment was released just this past couple weeks, was Mission Impossible. Started off as a, I think 50s or 60s television show. Didn't actually get redone, rebooted until the 1990s with the original Tom Cruise one. And I think that one's been one of the more successful. Obviously, like box office numbers, it's obviously been successful, but I don't think there's been a bad installment in the whole series of the Tom Cruise ones. But I mean, some have been more successful than others as far as storytelling and action and all that. But I've yet to see the most recent one. I've heard it's like by far the best one. So I'm kind of excited to see that.
Yeah, people apparently love the new one. I've seen all of them up to this point. I think the one people dislike the most is the second one.
I think, that's probably the one that I think is the lowest, but it's still an entertaining action movie.
They're all like very well received in general. Like on the hierarchy of action movies, they're at the top. There's a mile of things below them. Even the worst one, which is 2, is still incredible. So yeah, and the new one, people are losing their minds. People are like, it's the best action movie I've ever seen. And I don't know if that's just like the honeymoon phase with the movie, or people just really genuinely love it. But I'm super pumped to see it. And I think Mission Impossible is a really good place to start this one off. And yeah, I think it's really good. And I think Tom Cruise really owns that role. And most people wouldn't know that it is a remake, or it is like a reboot of a pre-existing intellectual property.
Right, especially maybe the 18 to 34, 18 to maybe late 30s demographic now. A lot of people, probably weren't around or old enough to really recognize the original or the 1990s Mission Impossible movie that came out, and to know that this was like a major thing, that it was a big deal because it was being rebooted from a mid 20th century television show. Yeah.
Sorry if you guys can hear my clicking. I have like notes open and they're on my computer. So the first one I'm gonna go. You said Mission Impossible, great one. I'm gonna go. I don't know if you've seen it, but a good remake is the show Westworld. So Westworld, I believe, is actually based off of a book, but then it was turned into a movie with Yul Brynner, who is the Pharaoh from the Ten Commandments. If you've ever seen the Ten Commandments movie, he's the Pharaoh, and he's in Westworld the movie, which I heard was not incredibly well received when it came out, but it's a cool idea of like a robot amusement park, and the robots and stuff kind of go rogue. And I think that's a really cool idea. There's we've talked about on the episode, there's a little bit of a Westworld type thing that The Simpsons do with the Bart episode, the Itchy and Scratchy Land. That's a little Westworld right there. And so it's in the pop culture, like the, I guess, vernacular, or the there's a word that is for that, but it's also very late and I'm not thinking, but it's in the lexicon. That's the word, it's lexicon. And I think that's a good one. I am not a huge fan of the TV show Westworld, partially because it always came on at another time rather than Game of Thrones, and I'm a huge Game of Thrones like hype beast. So anything else, I'm like, it's not Game of Thrones. I'm sorry. And I'm one of the annoying people who's like, you should read the books as well. But yeah.
Yeah, Westworld is great. It's I love Game of Thrones as well. It's a really good companion piece for like HBO's prestige, huge budget television series. I think it actually can get a lot more, and this is kind of a critique of both shows, but a lot more convoluted than Game of Thrones can get. There's so many characters and storylines to keep track of that, but what Westworld does pretty well is, you get confused going through, the journey of the mid part of the season, beginning and whatever, but it all puts it in place very, very well near the end of both the first and second seasons that have aired so far. Yeah. So, I'm looking forward to how the story's going to continue for sure.
Yeah, I definitely like it. I like that one of the McPoyle brothers, if you've ever seen It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, is in it. That always makes me laugh whenever I see him. I know it's a very serious role, but I always know him as the one of the McPoyles. Yeah, and it just takes me out.
He's actually a very good actor. And I'm the same. It always makes me kind of giggle seeing them in like a dramatic role, but then when they kind of take control of the scene and show that they have good acting chops.
Oh, yeah, they're like, fantastic.
Okay, yeah, this guy's good.
Yeah, I wonder where they found those guys, because It's Always Sunny, going on a tangent, is like they made the first season and second season for literally no money. Like, it was filmed on like a hand camera.
Right, and I think Danny DeVito basically did them a favor by coming on in the second season, and that shows just the rest is history. Yeah,
I love how Charlie Day. We're going to get into Charlie Day a little bit later, potentially, if I get to there in my notes. Charlie Day in that show is like, one, comic genius. Two, he helped write it. And I think it's him. Rob McElhenney is Mac. And then I forgot the guy who plays D. But those guys, the way they described the show in an interview, they said it's like Seinfeld on crack, which I kind of tend to agree with. It's like a really, really low-life version of Seinfeld in all the best ways.
It really is. And there's another show that we'll get to later on through my good remakes and reboots list that is it's very much in the vein of It's Always Sunny, but it's targeted towards children. And I just recently started watching this, and I think it's a brilliant show, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. So mine that I'm going to talk about... Ow, I just hit my leg. That I'm going to talk about is the movie True Grit, the one with Jeff Bridges, that came out probably like 7 years ago, maybe. I personally really, really like True Grit. I don't really usually like Westerns either. Talk about Westworld. I do like Westworld. I also like 310 to Yuma, which I also believe is based off of something else.
Yep.
Yeah, which is another fantastic movie. It's not even on my list. But it probably should be because it's a great movie. But True Grit is so well done on every level. And it was one of those movies that didn't get a lot of hype when it came out. And I think I saw it in theaters. I probably definitely saw it in theaters with my parents, because I know both of my parents are big movie people. I'm a big movie boy. And I watched it recently. It was on TV probably a week ago. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this is so good.
Yeah, it is it's a damn good movie. And it's unfortunate. I think it's going to go down as one of the forgotten Coen brother movies, just because it's not exactly within their wheelhouse of what they've done before, which, I mean, they have a pretty wide range of movies that they've done before, but just a pure Western like that, it just seems like, well, that's okay. They're going to do that now. But yeah, it's a damn good movie. I think it was the first movie by Haley Steinfeld or whatever her name is. She ended up going off to Pitch Perfect series, and she's doing some of her own things. Yeah, but she's really good in that. She was really young when she was introduced in that film. Yeah, Jeff Bridges, awesome as always in that.
And that movie, I think part of it, having her in it, it was marketed a lot towards, not completely towards kids, but it was marketed, there's a young female lead, and a lot of kids went to see it. One of the opening scenes in the movie is a hanging. And it's pretty, they don't show it, of course, but they show, like, the boards drop out in the feet. And I was watching, I'm like, oh my God, like, whoa, this is pretty, like, intense stuff, especially for a lot of kids being marketed to this film, especially because it's Coen Brothers as well. And you see in Fargo, Steve Buscemi getting chopped up into a wood chipper, which is one of the greatest scenes of all time. It's classic. Just his feet getting, like, plowed into there. It's incredible. But I think with that, incredible remake. What do you have? So I have a few that are,
Next up for me is Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was a really good, origin story once again for Peter Parker. Well, I guess it wasn't exactly the origin, but it restarted his kind of storyline after Captain America: Civil War.
Yeah.
But it was his first like standalone movie. And as a first standalone movie in a rebooted sort of new actor starring as Peter Parker, I thought it was the best one since Tobey Maguire and his first like Spider-Man movie way back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, except I love the Sam Raimi, the first two Spider-Man movies with Peter Parker. Those are incredible.
Yes.
Except even though I don't know how old Tobey Maguire is in that movie, he looks like he's 29. Even though he's probably like 24 in that film, and he's playing a high school student. Tom Holland, I think, is like 21 or 22. He looks like he's 16. Like, that kid looks like he's in high school. I think he just turned 20, maybe. But when they filmed that, he was probably like 18. and he looks the part. And I think that's what really helps sell that role. And he's incredibly charismatic, like how Tobey Maguire was in the first one. He's like this nerdy kid, but he's very likable. And I really like that. Like the Andrew Garfield one, he looks like he's 37. And he doesn't act like a high school kid. He acts like a 37-year-old. But those movies I completely wiped from my memory. But yeah, the Spider-Man ones?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and spoil The Amazing Spider-Man. That's on my worst of remakes list.
Oh, cool. I have another Marvel movie. I have a bunch of DC and Marvel movies on my worst of remakes. Another good one that's a best of, that's a movie, that's another series, is the Ocean series. I actually haven't seen Ocean's 8, the one with like Anne Hathaway and stuff that came out a couple months ago. I have not seen that yet. I heard it actually is quite good. It's not the same as like Ocean's 8 or Ocean's 11, Ocean's like 12, whatever. It's not the same as those, but it is good. It's serviceable. If you go back and watch the original Ocean's movies with Frank Sinatra and stuff, they're very problematic for a number of reasons. You should go back and watch them. Everyone who's listening, go and watch them, or just look it up on YouTube, and you will understand why I said they're very problematic. Just watch them in the lens of 2018. Which is when we're recording this, if that's going to date this episode. But yeah, so
everything that's considered acceptable back then, like just like you said, keep that in mind. And it's something like that would not be released today. Yeah. So and I have Ocean's 11, the reboot on my list as well, and I think they did a hell of a job with that. And it's one of those last ones that I can think of that's just like this incredible ensemble cast of these mega movie stars all in one place, and all of them not really competing for screen time or like trying to be, the person that just kind of like checks the other person out off, like, I'm trying to be like the star of this movie. They all have their time, and they all use their screen time really well.
Yeah. I think that I have it in my notes right here with another movie, kind of not in parentheses, but slash, is The Italian Job. Whereas The Italian Job isn't as much, it's kind of a reboot more than a remake, because if you've seen the original one, there's I'm not going to spoil anything about that movie, because you should go see that if you haven't. I know it's a little underrated, and it probably came out 10 or 12 years ago now. That's another good ensemble heist movie, but it is kind of, in a way, a follow-up to the first one, in a lot of ways. There's a few references to the first one, even though they're kind of connected universes. Watch that. Another good heist movie. What do you have on another good remake?
Next one, big good reboot for me, Batman Begins, the start of Chris Nolan's amazing trilogy. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's a whole lot that needs to be said about it. It's just perfect casting, a damn good retelling of Bruce Wayne's story, and it's just a phenomenal start to what was going to be like the three best Batman movies probably that will be made.
Oh, 100%. I think that's like the Batman Year One story is kind of what those are based off of. And then there's a bunch of other things mixed in. But those movies are, honestly, I'm a nerd like you. Those movies aren't really comic book movies anymore. Those movies are just good, suspenseful drama action films that happen to take a few characters that were created in a comic book setting. It's kind of how I describe it, because the rest of that universe, like even the Batmobile is like that. It's like a quasi-military Humvee kind of tactical vehicle. All of Batman's like abilities with his tech and his armor and everything are explained very logically. Even the Joker is just a sociopath, and Bane is another sociopath, and all of it is very. It's grounded in reality in a really special kind of way that I don't think many other superheroes could be. And Christopher Nolan pulled it off with, like, he got, like, people who would be like, superheroes are for nerds. He got all those guys to be like, yo, Batman's a badass. And I think that's a pretty big thing. And I know now in our culture in 2018, rather than 2008 or 9 when those movies came out, or 2006, I think when Batman Begins came out, it was 2006. Back then, comic book culture is way different than it is right now. And I wonder how those movies would be received if they came out today. I don't think they'd be received well because they're not comic booky.
That's true. And I think and this is mainly DC that I'm talking about here. If there's one thing that you could possibly critique about Batman Begins, and it's at no fault of its own, is that the DC kind of extended universe took all the wrong lessons from Batman Begins and Nolan's trilogy about being grounded and, well, not even grounded, because hell, all the other ones are not grounded at all, but being like the dark and brooding kind of side of the stories. They took those and just went the completely wrong direction.
Yeah.
Man of Steel wasn't terrible, but it was serviceable at best.
Yeah.
And then everything else, like Justice League, Batman vs. Superman, has just been like, ugh.
Yeah.
What's going on here?
I stand by the fact that Man of Steel is not bad. It's not great. It, like, if you rank all of the modern superhero movies, which are probably starting with the X-Men movies and the Spider-Man movies, like in 1999, 2000, which is when the original X-Men came out with like Hugh Jackman and stuff. If you rank those up to 2018, the Man of Steel ranks somewhere in the middle. It's not the best, but it's not at all the worst. And there's a few of those which will be on my list, which are some of the worst remakes of all time, which, spoiler, are a few comic book movies. But my next one on my list is The Fly from 1986 with Jeff Goldblum, which is, if you guys have not seen The Fly, I will go through it very quickly. The original one came out in 1958 and was about a scientist who is trying to develop teleportation in his garage or basement. He does it, however, in the teleportation device, a fly goes into the seal with him into the chamber, and when he teleports and he goes through like air, the fly's DNA binds with him, and throughout the film he turns into a giant fly. That movie I saw with my dad, and like not in 1950, I saw it when I was like 6. That movie scared the shit out of me. Now, I probably saw the David Cronenberg Fly. If you guys don't know who David Cronenberg is, he's like the king of visual effects, king of like prosthetics and makeup and gross out stuff. He's incredible. He's a legend. I think I saw The Fly with Jeff Goldblum maybe when I was 10. If I saw that when I was at 6. The Fly was one of the grossest things I have ever seen, but it is one of the coolest movies ever. If you just go back and look at it, and all of that is practical effects, and I can only imagine how Jeff Goldblum felt in all that makeup and all like those wires and prosthetics and everything. But that movie is so good.
It is. I 100% agree with it being on that list. Yeah, it's definitely a legendary like film as far as body horror and like kind of grotesque, special effects and practical effects for makeup. And it's a really tragic story too. It's just a good like story overall. I would highly, like, even if you're not a horror fan, it's just a good like tragic story to watch. Goldblum's amazing in it. Gina Davis is awesome. Yeah, Cronenberg directs the hell out of it. Yeah, highly recommend it.
Yeah, 100%. So what's your next one?
Going along with 80s stuff, this is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's definitely my top remake of all time, is John Carpenter's 1982 reboot of The Thing.
Oh,
Kurt Russell, okay. And oh my god, I can't say enough good things about this. It's almost all practical effects. There's a few of the kind of stop motion effects back then, like mixed in with it, but just phenomenal creature effects and gore effects. It's a perfect movie that has this atmosphere of just paranoia to it. Because for anybody that hasn't seen it, the gist is there's a scientific team down in Antarctica that is basically they're holed up with this alien that has taken possession of one or more of their fellow like scientists, and basically they have to go throughout the whole movie just wondering like, all right, who is it? And it just keeps getting crazier and crazier from there. Body parts start getting lopped off, people die, and Kurt Russell as always is just a badass in this movie. It's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, that movie, it was going to be on mine. But yeah, that movie is so good. And it's so scary in like the best ways. And then for other good ones, there's a few I have. There's a few that I find interesting. I was actually looking through a list. I didn't know some of these, like the Ten Commandments from 1956, like the famous one, apparently was a remake of a film from 1923.
Didn't know that.
I didn't know either, but the Ten Commandments, if you're Jewish, if you're Catholic, whatever you are, like, it doesn't matter. The movie does not discriminate based on what your religious preference is, whether if you have learned it in school or not. I don't know. Ben, did you go to, like, Catholic school or, like, Sunday school and stuff?
I didn't, but I remember watching this movie on TV because my dad would say, like, oh, Ten Commandments is on, Charlton Heston, let's sit down and watch it. If you have 6 hours to spare, sure, why not watch it? It's a long-ass movie.
Yeah. I mean, most people probably know by the everything about me that I'm Catholic. I'm from Chicago, Catholic guy. I'm essentially Daredevil, except I'm not blind and I'm not from New York. I'm like 2 steps away. But yeah, so I went to Catholic grade school. Then I went to an all-boys Catholic high school. So we watched the Ten Commandments just a few times. But yeah, so I love that movie. Also, it's always on at Christmas. So yeah, you just spend a whole day. You could watch probably all 3 Lord of the Rings movies at the same amount of time you would watch the Ten Commandments, because it's like 12 hours long. But it's fantastic. So that's kind of on the list. I'm just looking. I think another good one here that I have actually written down. I don't love the remake for 2 reasons, but it's an incredible feat. Is Les Miserables from 2012 it's a book, and then it's a play, and then it was like a movie, then a play, then a book again, and everything. But the other one, the film from 1998, is what a lot of this takes its inspiration from. I don't like that the film does all of their singing in camera. It's not dubbed. And Russell Crowe's not an amazing singer, so it kind of takes you out of the moment. However, if you've never seen the movie, you should just go watch a few clips on YouTube. Even the song at the end, where they're on the barricades and they are... it's the French Revolution. It's a very powerful scene. The whole movie's quite powerful. There's a few parts where it drags. Sacha Baron Cohen is in the movie, which kind of takes you out of a few scenes where he plays almost like a comic relief character, but it's a little heavy-handed in certain things. But it's really good, and I think it is a very good remake, and I believe it won a few Academy Awards.
I don't remember if it did. I've admittedly never seen any iteration of Les Mis. I just know the bare bones synopsis of it, so I can't really give a critique of it for one way or another. But maybe one of these days I'll like stumble across it on Netflix and be like, well, I've seen everything else. Maybe I'll just sit down and watch this.
Yeah, it's it's not bad. The name of the movie is The Miserable, for those of you who don't know your French. So it is not a super uplifting film for most of the movie. But if you want to watch it and like have a good watch of something that's kind of interesting, different, it's a musical, if you like that, it's a very huge production. Yep, give it a shot. But yeah, I have another one on my list before I let you get to yours. It's not made yet, but I'm going to say it's going to be bad already. They're remaking Cats into a movie, and James Corden's going to be in it. It's going to be bad.
But yeah, I just don't. Yeah, some things it's just kind of like, why? Like, why bother throwing money at this kind of thing when there are screenwriters, filmmakers, like talented up and coming people that are looking to get their foot in the door? Like, give them a chance.
Yeah.
I understand from a business standpoint, like throwing money at some sort of name recognition.
Yeah.
And like an event type of movie. But at the same time, like, you got to think back, like if someone hadn't given, Ridley Scott money to do his first movie, had someone not given James Cameron, Scorsese money to do their first movies, like where would they be? So you got to spend money on like, they're going to be risks and you might, have to sit through some turds every now and then, but let's get some original ideas back here.
100%. I completely agree with that. I couldn't agree more. Going on that, there's another one that's the next one on this list. I have the Jungle Book from 2016, the Jon Favreau version with from Disney. They say live action. There's only one live action character because everything else is like CGI.
Is that on your good or bad list?
It's on my good list.
Okay, good. I was going to say, I really like that movie.
I do too. Did you know they're making the other one called Mowgli? That went to Netflix now. Netflix bought it, so it's going to be distributed through them, not through theaters.
Okay. That's interesting. That's another one of those things where Hollywood's like, has the same idea within a couple years time span. Like, it's just thinking like, there's some people have got to be sharing ideas around here. Like, does someone not like realize like, oh yeah, Disney, the biggest media company in the world, has just made this. Like, why don't we just shelve our other Jungle Book story? Like, no, let's go ahead and put it out. Like, don't they realize like that's probably not going to be that successful? Yeah,
because it's an independent property. Like, isn't Cinderella the same? One of those, like the Brothers Grimm stories, all of those are free game.
Like public domain.
Yeah, they're public domain. Like Peter Rabbit is one of them. I think Winnie the Pooh is not, but a bunch of those that you'd be very surprised they're public domain. Like I think Hunchback of Notre Dame is public domain. A lot of those are where like the Jungle Book. It's a book, so Disney just made a really good adaptation of it. But technically, you and I could make a Jungle Book movie right now, and no one would sue us. I don't think you can call it
exactly.
I don't know if you're allowed to call it the Jungle Book. You might have to call it like, you know how the movie Precious is like Precious based on the novel like Pushed by Sapphire? Mm-hmm. You'd probably have to do something like that. It'd be like something based on the novel Jungle Book.
Right.
But yeah, what's your next one?
I'll run through a few quick ones.
Yeah.
Real quick. I got a couple of television ones. Netflix's Arrested Development, kind of not exactly a reboot or remake, but they kind of just like continued it. But this was like 10 years later, so I guess you could consider it kind of like a reboot. Pretty good. Yeah. I would say it was a little bit on a lower scale than like the original 3 seasons that aired on Fox, but still very funny, very entertaining. Same with Wet Hot American Summer. The two single series, like what was it, First Day of Camp and 10 Years Later. Yeah. Those were those are hilarious. And if you haven't seen the original movie, do it. There's a lot of people that you have recognized as comedic actors and improvisational actors before that. You'll be like, oh yeah, that person, I remember them. And this is all from like 2001.
Do you recommend watching them in the order that they are chronologically in that universe, or the order that they are released? Because there's a reason I ask.
Order that they are released. It makes it funnier to see Michael Showalter like fat and out of shape, supposed to be like this young, like freshly still in high school, like 16-year-old, but he's like a 50-year-old actor. It makes it funnier, and they know exactly what they're doing.
Oh yeah, and like Bradley Cooper's in it, like Amy Poehler's in it, H. John Benjamin is a can of soup. It's incredible. Like it is such an underrated, funny thing that is just it's great. Do you have to go do a thing?
No, my wife is just making a bunch of noise in the kitchen right now.
Oh, okay. No, that's cool.
Sorry about that.
No, I just didn't know.
Sorry.
It's all good.
Sorry.
Oh,
I'm just hungry.
No, we are breaking.
I'm just so hungry.
Yeah, no, we're breaking the second or third wall, whatever podcasting is. Now it's real for everybody. They know we're real people with real lives outside of this.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, it's cool. I like that. Like it's great when someone like comes in. You're like, oh my god! It shows how improv this whole thing really is. Yeah. So that one's good. Oh, Netflix. Have you seen Lost in Space?
I haven't checked out that one yet.
It is so good. Watch it.
The last thing Lost in Space related I saw was like that late '90s movie reboot with the dude from Friends.
Matthew Perry?
Yeah, no, not Matthew Perry. Joey.
Oh, yeah. What is his name? Someone's gonna. Let's see.
Friends people yelling at us right now.
Joey.
Like, Joey.
From
Matt LeBlanc.
Oh yeah, Matt LeBlanc. Okay, yep. God, thank God, because that was going to take me another 15 seconds of being an idiot. But yeah, no, I think Lost in Space, the one on Netflix that just came out as an original series, is fantastic. Like, completely fantastic. Really, really good. Go see it. I have one more that's a good and the bad that's going to bridge the what's good and what's not. Mine is Godzilla. So, The original Toho Godzilla ones are so good. If you like a big guy in a big rubber suit destroying a cement city, it is amazing. Watch the original ones. You should, regardless of if you are into that or not. They're important films to watch. Godzilla has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Watch the goddamn movies. But they made a version of Godzilla in 1999 or 2000 with Matthew Broderick. That movie is no good. And
no bueno. That's on my bad list as well. Yeah, 98. Roland Emmerich, who directed Independence Day.
Yep.
Not even like 2 years ago, or 2 years prior, maybe a year prior. Yeah, he was on his untouchable director role with that movie because it was so damn successful. But yeah, 98 Godzilla, not that great.
Yeah. No, I know. I don't know if we're allowed to use the word on here. There's an R word that they use in that, which you're not allowed to say anymore, which is very derogatory for people with special needs. I'm not going to say the word, but there's a line, is "Are you blank?" is a very, very prominent line, and someone else repeats it. You could not get away with that in 2018. I don't even know if you were supposed to be able to get away with that in 1999, the way they were talking about it. But, yeah, that's a thing. Also, the CGI of the movie's bad, and for some reason, Godzilla is only like 75 feet tall. But
and
yeah,
it looks terrible.
Yeah, it's not good. So there's that. Then the good ones, they have made other. There's a Godzilla movie that they made in 2014, which is going to be like a Godzilla extended universe now, where it's Godzilla King of the Monsters, and that was done by Gareth Edwards, who also did Star Wars. Rogue One. Yeah, he did Rogue One. Really good Godzilla movie.
It was very good.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. People are like, there's not enough Godzilla. But I'm like, I mean, whatever. You see enough of Godzilla to get the idea. It's not like he's only in it for one scene. But then, if you haven't seen it, you should. This goes in the really good side. There was a Godzilla movie that came out last year or 2 years ago in Japan. And it came out in the US as well, but I don't know if there's an English version. It's like, there's subtitles. It's called Shin Godzilla. Watch it, because it's like the Toho version. Toho made it. So it's a dude in a suit. I mean, there's CGI, of course, but it is so creepy and so weird and so well done. You should see it. The ending is very perplexing and almost disturbing. But yeah, watch that. And that's going to bridge the gap from bad to good or good to bad movies. So what do we have that are bad ones?
We've mentioned my two ones that I could really get into was Amazing Spider-Man and Godzilla from 98. Those were the two main ones that I thought were just bad. I was trying to look up other remakes and reboots, and it turns out like I have not seen a whole lot of recent or even in my lifetime, like just straight up reboots. I don't know if it's just subconsciously me avoiding them, knowing that they're probably going to be bad. But yeah, I could not think of ones that I had actually seen that I could just label as not being very good.
I have a few on my list, actually, that are... My first one I have on my list is Planet of the Apes, not the new ones. There's a Planet of the Apes that came out in 2000 with Mark Wahlberg.
Tim Burton,
yeah. That one. So the original Planet of the Apes is with Charlton Heston and came out in the late 60s, early 70s, I believe. I think it was like 1967, 1969 maybe?
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that area. And that movie was incredible. I'm not going to spoil the ending for those of you who don't know the ending, but there's a version. Yeah, you should know the ending, but I'm not going to spoil it because I'm not going to be that guy. But there's a version that came out in 2000 with Mark Wahlberg, and it was directed by Tim Burton, and it is abysmal. It is incredibly bad in so many ways. Not just because they did the same prosthetic chimpanzee faces on the actors that did not hold up well, and they didn't even do them as well as they did in the 60s. The CGI is really bad. The story is really bad and weird. The whole movie is just very, very strange. So that is on the list of bad ones. Oh, back to going the list of good ones. The new Star Trek remakes that J.J. Abrams has done, fantastic. I'm going to just put that in there as an honorable mention. You guys should see those. I'm going to get into that a little bit later about Star Wars and not good things. There's another
Star
one
Trek's on my list as well.
Okay, cool. There's another one. I haven't seen it, but it's on this list. Carrie. I haven't seen it, so can't say much about it.
I haven't seen it either.
And the one I have is very bad. Is Psycho. So everyone knows the movie Psycho, which is one of the best suspense horror thriller movies of all time. I think it has 100% Rotten Tomatoes. I'd have to guess it would be 100% because it's a Hitchcock movie. It is 1960. There's a class I actually took at Purdue where we watched Psycho. It wasn't a film class, but we watched Psycho in the class. It was pretty cool. And a bunch of people hadn't seen it, and it blew their minds. But then there's a version of Psycho that was made with Vince Vaughn, probably, I don't know, you want to say between 2000, it's probably 2007.
It was like 97 or 98.
Oh, 97? Oh, I was saying way earlier. Okay, so it's 97, 98. It is so bad. There's a scene where he is jerking off, looking at her through like an eye hole, like glory hole kind of window thing, or it's implied that he's jerking off. It is so weird and bad. And it's just like the Norman Bates thing is bad. All of it is bad. Just no, it is horse shit. Okay, what's yours?
You reminded me of that one. Yeah, that movie's awful. And the hook for it was supposed to be that it was like supposed to be a shot for shot remake. of the original Hitchcock film. And to that end, it is like pretty faithful to it. I could have to watch them side by side to make sure that it was perfectly done like that. But yeah, Vince Vaughn is a terrible Norman Bates. He just does not he comes off creepy in a bad way, and not the way that it should be intended.
Yes, completely agree. Also, I mean, I don't care. Like, you're casting a new actor, it's a new person. He doesn't look like Norman Bates. He's not like good looking enough. And not to say Vince Vaughn's bad looking, but you need someone who's more like suave.
Right. Like, someone just good enough, just like good looking enough to where they could have like kind of catch you off guard.
Yeah.
And make you believe that you're in a safe place, even though this motel is down the hill from this creepy ass haunted looking fucking house.
Yeah.
And in the middle of nowhere. But yeah, the original actor that played Norman Bates, yeah, he was an everyman looking dude that, you didn't get your guard up around him. You were like, okay, I'm comfortable talking to this dude, even though he did give off that kind of creepy, mommy dearest type of feeling.
Yeah, 100%. And Vince Vaughn is like Peter LaFleur from Dodgeball. Like, that dude is not the kind of guy who's like suave. He's like such an everyman. He's like a walking Homer Simpson in that movie. And that's not a bad thing, but it just doesn't fit the movie properly. It's also tonally very strange. Because you are taking a 1960s film and doing it shot for shot. Very strange. So, yeah. What do you have?
I want to go back to my good list one last time.
Yeah.
I teased a show that was like kind of like It's Always Sunny for Kids earlier. So I wanted to make sure that I went off or talked about that. Cartoon Network's Teen Titans Go.
Okay.
I absolutely love it. I just got into this show a couple weeks ago because I saw the trailer for the movie, which my wife and I just went and saw tonight. The show is hilarious.
Is it really?
And yes, it is just this nihilistic, chaotic, just like complete parody of the superhero genre at all times. Like, there's very little crime fighting to be had. And basically all the Titans, aside from Robin, who's this narcissistic spaz all the time, they're all complete lazy pieces of shit. And basically they just kind of inadvertently outdo each other to see who is the worst person. And it really gives off that kind of It's Always Sunny, like all of these people are bad people, but they're just doing their best. Kind of, well, they're not really doing their best. They're doing their worst. But yeah, it's genuinely funny. And I'd say if you were interested in the movie at all, there's some callbacks to the show, but not a whole lot. And you could really go into it and get a feel for how the show is going to be. And it's hilarious. And I've had some good laughs over the past couple of days watching it.
Yeah. I really want to see it. I know Nicolas Cage plays Superman in that movie, and he named his son Kal-El.
Mm-hmm.
And he wanted to play Superman in a movie that like never happened. And there's like a whole documentary about it. Actually, the guy who directed that documentary, his name is John. Is it John Schnepp? He actually died last week of like a freak heart attack and died. Yeah, and he was like this kind of like Comic-Con kind of nerd cult icon. He just randomly kind of like had a heart attack and dropped dead. But yeah, that's like one of those things that Nicolas Cage has always wanted to do is play Superman, and I think that was kind of like a, oh my god, I finally get to become Superman on the big screen in one way. But the original Teen Titans came out when I was like probably in like grade school or high school, and I watched it. It was pretty great. And I've only ever seen snippets of the new one. I heard it's quite good though, like from what you're saying.
Yeah, and it's all the same voice actors too. The same voice actors that did the serious, like, you know, shit, like more superhero-y type of Teen Titans show. Like, yeah, they all came over to the goofy ass, like, just crazy show. And they're all awesome voice actors, and yeah, I can't recommend it enough.
Oh man, yeah. So that's actually really good. There's another one that's a really good one. I'm going to follow up your really good recommendation with one of the worst movies in one of... It's just horrible. It is complete garbage. It's The Mummy from last year with Tom Cruise.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that.
It is so bad. Like the original... There's like an original Mummy movie from like the 30s. Or maybe even 30s, 20s, 30s, 40s. Then there's the Brendan Fraser ones from the 90s. And then there's this piece of garbage. It is so bad. The CGI is actually okay. The story doesn't really make sense. Tom Cruise kisses someone to death, which is a real thing. You should watch it. It's great.
Not now.
It's just bad. It is so bad. There's some really cool stunts. There's like 2 or 3 really cool action set pieces that have to do with a plane, which Tom Cruise does do in person because he's a psychopath and he just wants to try to kill himself on screen. And I think it's so he can appease Lord Xenu and get into Scientology heaven. I don't know. Do they do heaven? I don't know what they do. But
I think their souls go to space or something like that. I don't know. If anybody is Scientologist and listening, don't sue us.
Yeah, don't sue us.
We're tossing out, you know, little things here. We don't know what we're talking about.
We equally hate everybody. We're not just targeting you. We hate everyone equally. So, I mean, yeah, you're just in the firing line. But yeah, Scientologists, please message us. I would love to know what your crazy ideas are. I mean, I'm Catholic. My ideas aren't much less crazy. So, I mean, you can target me as well. I'm fine. But yeah, I would love to know what crazy bullshit you believe. But yeah, so next we are going to go from The Mummy to one of my personal favorite bad movies that I love when I do a bad movie day, which I love Nicolas Cage. We just talked about The Wicker Man. It is so bad, but it's great. And if you guys have ever seen the meme, like the bees, not the bees, it's from that movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, apparently it's a 15%. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's charmingly bad, though.
It is charmingly bad.
It's bad in a way where you're just like, wow, like, you guys continued to make this even halfway through production, realizing this had to be so bad, but you laugh at it, you have a good time, you know what you're watching. Like, yeah, it's not like Godzilla 1998 bad, which we were really shitting on that movie tonight.
That movie is so shit. I mean, I love Matthew Broderick, and he was actually in a really good remake of The Producers, which I actually really liked, the one with Will Ferrell, and it was great, and Nathan Lane. But this other remake that he was in, so goddamn terrible. I can't say enough bad things about that movie. But The Wicker Man, on the other hand, if you haven't seen The Wicker Man, and you know the meme, the bees, not the bees, just watch the movie. It's so good. It's the good in the worst way possible. But yeah.
Nicolas Cage punches a woman in the face while dressed as a bear.
Yup, it's the best.
If that's not enough to sell you on at least renting this movie.
Yeah, I'm sure this movie you can find for free online. Not that I'm condoning finding movies for free on the internet. I'm sure it's on, or if you have streaming services, I'm sure you can find it. You should watch it. It is a real good watch. Especially if you have like a drinking night with your friends. Good movie to put on. But on that, I have a game for you, Ben. It's a game that was posted by another podcast called Lights Camera Podcast. And they have the Rotten Tomatoes drinking game.
Oh, no.
You should play it. I'm going to play it next time. And so how it works, it's on my phone, but I'm not going to just go through and try to find the picture. You have to guess movies, right? You like lay out some movies and you have to guess. Whoever gets the closest Rotten Tomatoes score wins, basically. Or you have a dealer and one person like has a movie and they have the score and everyone guesses. How many numbers you are off is how many seconds you have to drink.
Okay. I was about to ask, like, is it kind of like a Price is Right thing where like you have to guess closest without going over? But okay, that makes more sense. If you do go over and you're however many seconds you're away, you have to drink. Okay.
The rules are pretty loose on like they just have kind of like a picture they made with just like a few rules on it. But I'm sure you could change it up to make it your own thing if you want to do a Price is Right thing. I think that'd be pretty funny. Or you could do a Family Feud thing where you just all guess numbers. And yeah, you could do something like that as well. But it has to do with drinking. And I'm sure you could probably start with really easy movies like Citizen Kane, which is going to be a 99 or 100. But then you get really obscure movies that no one's heard of. And that's where it gets really fun. That's where people start getting alcohol poisoning. And that's when your night goes from a good night to great. And you go from 6 to midnight. So that's not me condoning alcohol poisoning or haze drinking. But you should try that game. I haven't, but I need to. That's my PSA. But yeah, so what do you have?
Well, I was going to ask, what are some? I don't know if you have any more bad ones because you said you thought you had a pretty decent list. But what shows or movies would you want to see rebooted?
Oh, okay. Would you say rebooted with the same actors or new actors? I have two answers.
Either or.
Okay, I would love to see a reboot, but like a mini series, like a Netflix 5-episode, 10-episode special. That's it of Cheers. With all the same people. I want to see Norm back because Norm, I'm like 2 degrees of separation from Norm. His last name is Went. We might have talked about this. I used to swim with his niece and nephew. And he always came to our championship swim meets. I swear to God, Norm from Cheers was there. But yeah, because he's from Chicago. But
was he drunk and belligerent there too?
No, I never met him. But my parents were like sitting next to him in the crowd one time. They're like, we sat next to Norm from Cheers. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. But yeah, so that's a little look into my life and being close to Norm. I would love to see a Cheers thing. Even with all the people like Frasier coming back, and then that could even spin off. You could do like a 10 episodes, 5 episodes of Cheers, 5 episodes of Frasier, even though unfortunately the dad is dead. But you could even work that in to like where they are now. Just 5 episodes of each. I'd love to see that, but nothing more for those shows.
I think they're kicking around the idea of redoing a Frasier.
Oh, really?
I think I heard that just recently, yeah.
Huh.
From Kelsey Grammer. I don't know how much or how far they're into if they're even in pre-production or if they're just having talks right now. But I want to say they're at least discussing it.
Yeah. I have a funny answer that I had written down. I said the Cosby Show, but it's probably not as funny as I thought it was when I was writing that. I just thought it was really funny, but it's probably not.
It's like Roseanne without Roseanne because her dumbass.
Yeah, they're redoing the show, but they're calling it whatever her last name is in the show.
Yeah, which I never watched it, but I kept up with that ridiculous storyline in recent months. Yeah, and for those of you who don't know, I'm not going to get too into it and not get political. Roseanne on Twitter essentially called an African American person a monkey, which, if you didn't know about that, you do now. And that's wrong, and thank God for ABC, which is their parent company is Disney, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Disney. But yeah. Are we going to talk about what we were going to last weekend with the James Gunn thing now that we're on this? We certainly can, and it's Disney related to to Disney firing people. Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I'm sure most of the people who listen to this based on demographics, you know what I'm talking about. James Gunn directed movies, these 2 movies called Guardians of the Galaxy, among doing a bunch of other stuff. He did the worst movie of all time, which is called Movie 43. He was involved in that, and that's not part of this. But so James Gunn had a few tweets about 10 years ago, or maybe a little bit less, where he said some very inappropriate things, and he was trying to be edgy funny, where it was just trying to say something for the reaction. He did apologize after these tweets a number of years ago. He got into an argument with some obnoxious right-wing people on the internet,
who James Gunn is very anti Donald Trump. And these people were very pro Donald Trump, and they dug up some stuff about him. Tried to ruffle some feathers. When this happened, Disney found out about what all was happening, and they immediately fired James Gunn because of these old tweets. Now, James Gunn was very gracious in how he left and how he accepted the news. He was very cool about it, about some horrible news. What do you think about all this?
To put it bluntly, I think their decision was bullshit. Okay. I think it was reactionary because they just wanted to save face. I think that it had come out that Gunn had apologized about those tweets far before they were ever surfaced in this way. And Disney, obviously Disney is a gigantic media company. They do their homework. They knew about these tweets. They probably had discussions with him. The only reason that it became a problem, air quotes, is that people were, stirring shit, and I think Disney cravenly wanted to play the fair card. They fired Roseanne for her thing, and now they wanted to fire Gunn for this, even though they're just objectively completely different problems.
Yes.
And I don't think many people are defending the tweets that he put out. They're, I guess the only defense I would have is just they're jokes. They're not funny jokes, though. They're very, inappropriate. I don't in any way condone the jokes, but I understand that they are jokes. And like you said, he was trying to be this, provocateur, edgelord type dude that's just trying to ruffle feathers and, get a rise out of people. And he even said, he's in his kind of apologetic tweets and messages that he put out in the days after those came out. He's like, yeah, I was pretty much a loser, dipshit back then, putting out that kind of stuff. It's not funny. I realize that now. I've grown as a person, and pretty much everyone that he's ever worked with has come and supported him and saying yeah, he's not this person on set. He's the most kind, gracious person you could ever work with. I think Dave Bautista just came out today or yesterday saying if they don't reinstate him as director or at least use his script for Guardians 3, he's not going to reprise his role.
Yeah. So I agree with what you're saying. What the tweets were not cool. James Gunn was very apologetic at the time and still is. And, with all of this, not to get too into it, but if Disney wants to take this line and fire people for what they've done and fire people for potentially in the past, the Roseanne thing, yes, get rid of her, wipe her out. Whatever. She said something disgusting and horrible and super racist. James Gunn thing was 10 years ago. I don't know if you guys know, Robert Downey Jr. went to jail for heroin. So that's a thing. And why don't they fire Robert Downey Jr. for that? I'm sure he said some not so savory things back then. There's a lot of people that Disney has hired and worked for and everything that is not cool. And I think the firing James Gunn thing, yeah, is reactionary. And I think it's a very sensationalized thing that they needed to do at the time. I think it's wrong. And I think they somehow should bring him back and work with it, because just doing that I don't think is okay, because there's shades of gray here. And one thing is clearly way worse, like you said. And yeah, I think James Gunn, frankly, as a person, has changed probably since then and has definitely learned. And Disney definitely knew about this. Disney does the deepest dive. If they hire you, they've looked at you. They've hired 1,000 interns in their intern army to do every little bit of research on everything you've ever done. And I'm sure that came up, and they're like, hey, we can look past that. But now, since this kind of thing came up, they have to do it because they were being pressured.
Yeah, and I think the most important take from this is it should have been the takeaway had they stood by their director, who has made them ass loads of cash, put out 2 quality films. I think what they should have said, their stance should have been, listen, yes, we've had this discussion with James Gunn. We see that he's grown as a person. That's the most important part is, yeah, everyone screws up, says stupid shit in their past. Have they learned from it? Have they grown Have they put that behind them? Have they basically turned into a person that's going to contribute positively to society at large?
Yeah.
James Gunn has, I believe, I don't personally know him, but I follow him on Twitter. He's put out good stuff. He seems like a good person. And the main difference being between this and Roseanne Barr is she, in the past, also said some stupid, horrible crap, and currently, in the present, was saying some stupid, horrible crap. You can't put those on the same playing field as far as like, oh, well, she was fired, you got to fire him for this. It's just, they should have stuck by their dude and said, we realize this is not a good look for him, but it's not who he is anymore.
Exactly.
And we're going to be with our dude.
Yeah, 100%. I completely, 1,000,000% agree with you. Yep. But yeah, going off on that, on other shows, what are some shows, that was a really weird aside, what are some shows that you would like to see get kind of rebooted or remade in 2018, whether it be through Netflix or through, like, syndicated television?
There was, I'm going to age myself quite a bit, and I'm going to see how deep this nerd hole goes with some of your listeners. There was a show on Fox back in the mid-90s called Sliders. It was a sci-fi show starring Jerry O'Connell and a bunch of other actors I cannot name off the top of my head. Basically, Jerry O'Connell plays this whip-smart scientist guy. He creates this teleportation device, and him and his group of friends go through these portals every week. Like it's a kind of every week different kind of dimension that they go to. And like the overarching plot of the series is like, can they find their way back to their dimension? But every week they go to this alternate dimension of Earth, or sometimes planets that aren't Earth, and just different, crazy societies. There's one where vampires are real. There's one where women as a whole have like taken over the world and have like put men into like kind of enslavement for being inferior sex. Just it was a cool show to me back when I was like 10 years old. So I don't know how well a lot of it's held up, but I loved that show, and I think it would be cool to like kind of have that sort of just it's an easy show to write, probably, as far as just like, just do different dimensions every week.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a super smart show, but I think it'd be a fun one just to kind of shut your brain off and watch every week.
Yeah, I'm looking at the cast. John Rhys Davies is in this, he's in Indiana Jones, the Last Crusade, and he's also Gimli in Lord of the Rings. So
right, yeah.
Yeah, he's Gimli.
He's Rembrandt in Sliders.
Yeah, I'm looking at this. This show looks incredible. It looks a little bit like a mix between Doctor Who and Rick and Morty. But I'm sure I'm going to get into Rick and Morty in a little bit. But it looks amazing. This is something I think I'm going to go take a deep dive and go watch some of these, because I love like 90s shows like Stargate, which I heard they're potentially making another one of. I heard.
Show or movie?
Movie. I've heard. I don't know. I was just like reading through news. It's like, it's probably one of those things that's in like some studio somewhere like at Universal where they're like, hey, we have the Stargate script from 2007. Do you guys want to check it out? And then some intern like heard it through a wall and was like, I have to put this on Reddit right now. It's probably one of those, but that is something that I have heard very, very loosely. What is another show? Okay, here's one like this. Rick and Morty. Are you a fan?
Yes.
Okay. Would you want to see a Rick and Morty movie?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Not at this time.
Yes.
I think it's best digested in its 21-minute increments, and I think that's the best way to watch the show, because they're able to do the different weird worlds that they create in that short amount of time.
Yeah.
They don't have to stretch it into an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I think that would, at this point, I think it'd be a detriment to the storytelling. I could be wrong. Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland could make a fucking incredible movie. Yeah. But right now, I think I just better enjoy it as, let's check it out every week once it comes out.
Yeah. Speaking of Dan Harmon, that's something I want rebooted is Community. I want to see Community. I want to see where they are now because Donald Glover was in it, and I want to see that. I want to see more. Apparently, Chevy Chase on the show is the meanest person on the planet. I didn't know that.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, it's weird. You would think he's so nice and friendly because he's like the dad from Family Vacation, and he was like the newscaster on the old SNL. But apparently, he's a monster. So, there you go.
Did you think Community suffered when Donald Glover left?
Yes. I 100,000,000% think so. I think it would be a very similar thing like the previous season of Rick and Morty was not as good because Jerry wasn't in it all the time. I think you need to have Jerry as part of the family, and I think that's why they brought him in at the end because they realized that. Because you need to have Jerry who's this complete foil to Rick, and because if you don't have Jerry, it's just Rick, Summer, Morty, and Beth doing their adventure, and then Jerry's just sad in his like shitty apartment. But you need to have him there to be such an opposite because that brings this tension and brings that like dynamic together. Because then you see how much of a monster Rick really is. Because Jerry's kind of is much of a soft boy as he is. He's very much like how most people would think in this situation objectively, like, what are you doing? But yeah, you're meant to hate him.
And Jerry actually, him and Simple Rick.
Yeah,
it's one of my favorite, like, just throwaway storylines in one of the episodes. Like, it's such an endearing, sad little storyline.
I know.
Too, like, they're made for each other. They're both complete screw ups.
Yep.
And yet, like, they know they just can't have each other anymore.
Yes. I think one of my favorite lines from Jerry in all of Rick and Morty, like the entire thing, is when they, Beth and Jerry are. It's the episode where Rick goes inside of his car battery to meet Stephen Colbert and then meet another dude in a smaller battery. The other story is Beth and Jerry are getting ice cream and they hit a deer. And Beth has to perform surgery on the deer. And they there's a line where Beth is like, you have to call the police. And Jerry's like, I can't. And she's like, why? And he's like, it's rum raisin. Like, he's been drinking and driving. It's so funny. Like, it's the dumbest line, but like whenever I hear it, it makes me laugh so much because it's just like such a dumb thing to say. It's like, you have to say you were driving. It was rum raisin. It's like, so good. I love that, but I think you're right. They should not make it into a movie, at least now, unless there's a story arc they could do in an hour and a half that you need to do, not broken up. Yeah, but at this point, no. Don't movieify Rick and Morty. But a show I think they should reboot or redo in a different way. I think it would be very interesting. The show's still on the air, very much so still on the air. I think because Matt Groening has gone to Netflix to do this new show, Disenchantment or something. I think The Simpsons could do a Netflix series, and that's how they can end it. Because people want to see a Simpsons movie too. That's something that people want. Even whatever you think of the first one, I love the first Simpsons movie. I think it would be interesting since Matt Groening has this contract with Netflix, and I'm sure they're good friends now because I'm sure they've seen the show already and done test screenings, and people probably love it because they're hyping it up. And there's some huge names. I think it would be interesting to end Simpsons with 2 10-episode seasons on Netflix. Just 2 complete storylines that are like 10 hours or 5 hours, 2 of them, and that's how you end it. I think that'd be a nice wrap-up.
I don't think Fox would ever let that happen, though.
I don't think so either.
I think they probably realize that once the voice actors decide that they're done, I think that they're going to push hard on an advertising campaign to say, like, this is the last season of The Simpsons.
Yes.
And it's going to work on me, like, being a fan of the first 11 seasons. Like, yes. I'll absolutely watch every episode of the final season just to say, yeah, I watched it when it ended.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think The Simpsons is one of those shows, we're talking about shows that have never gone off the air, never been rebooted, that when that goes off the air, that will get a reboot one day. I don't know in what capacity. I don't think The Simpsons could ever be a show that won't be on the air. Say it ends in 5 years, 3 years, 2 years. I think 20 years, it'll come back.
I don't know. I really don't. Like, I would put that in my I don't want rebooted category.
You can't, like, Futurama, they were able to redo it 3 times. And it consistently was great, I think. But The Simpsons is a different kind of formula, and I think if you redid The Simpsons in 2044, that like all the cultural nods and all that stuff would be so different. And you can't, like, some of those jokes don't even pass over. Like, I'm sure if you showed The Simpsons to a kid who's never experienced some of these things, now, like, show it to like a 6th grader who only plays Fortnite and only watches YouTubers, if you showed them The Simpsons, they'd be like, this isn't funny.
Yeah, the comedic landscape has changed immensely since 90s to now. It's just a different world.
Yeah.
And I completely agree. It would not work to them.
No.
Because kids are stupid.
Yeah, they are. I actually, on this note, I was talking to Emma this weekend about do you know the TV show How It's Made? That should get a reboot. Yeah. They don't show that anymore because factory jobs and that kind of thing isn't needed. That's why they showed it to kids. It's because it's a real thing. It's not really as much of a thing because it's all robots anymore. Who the hell cares about that? But it's interesting to see people make baseballs or make like hockey helmets or make like whatever. But they don't show that because kids now don't find that interesting, I don't think. And they don't have that same like the ASMR part of it, like the same as Bob Ross, where it's very soothing to watch these things get made. I don't think kids find that soothing. Even there's this ramen noodle restaurant pretty close to my house, and it's pretty new. Guess what's on TV? They're showing streams of Fortnite. And this isn't me hating on Fortnite or hating on like esports or all that kind of stuff. But I'm like, dude, what the hell is this? Like, what is happening? Where like you can have like a legit restaurant in a town and the TV is broadcasting Fortnite rather than the Cubs. Like, what? But yeah.
Yeah, I'm a pretty heavy gamer. I don't get into Fortnite. I don't have like any ill will towards it. But yeah, I guess it's me being a different generation where I don't see the appeal of like live streaming. And well, I can see the appeal of like maybe just sharing with like a few people, hey, like, let's all like, shit on each other, watch together, but like live streaming out to like millions of people. Yeah. I don't get the viewership appeal.
Yeah.
Watching someone else play a video game.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I like playing Uncharted or playing like Fallout or even like Borderlands. I love that. I will go on YouTube and watch someone play a playthrough to see how to beat a certain section. Or I did it all the time with the Arkham games because some of those bosses are really hard. I'm like, okay, how do I beat this guy? Then, 100% I'll watch it, but I'm not going to just watch a 13-hour stream of a dude playing 9 rounds of Fortnite because, it's fun to play Fortnite with your friends or take turns or whatever, or even play, like, Halo, like when I was younger, playing, like, Halo 2. But I'm not going to watch someone else play Halo 2 and not be able to interact because the fun part is losing your shit on your friends. That's the fun part, but having this passiveness is like watching one of your buddies play, which sucks. No one wants to do that. Like, everyone wants to play GTA. No one wants to watch someone play GTA. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's just my thing on that. But yeah, I digress. Seinfeld should never be rebooted. I heard one of my friends, because I asked one of my buddies the same question this weekend on this topic, just to see what they would say. He's like, dude, reboot Seinfeld. I'm like, no, never. Because like The Simpsons, it wouldn't translate.
Yeah. And I don't think Jerry Seinfeld would do it.
No.
And you can't get anybody else to... You couldn't just, like, do the same show and give someone else's name to it. Like, because it's Seinfeld's show. And, and also Larry David's show, basically.
Yeah. And this is where I said I'm going to bring up Charlie Day again. Seinfeld has been rebooted. It's called It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The show is remade. It's just for a different generation. It's the same thing where it's just a show about nothing. And that's kind of where I got the title for this show about everything and nothing, just like Seinfeld or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where you can do anything on the show, and there's nothing stopping you because you don't box yourself into a certain genre. We're just talking about movies and ideas for whatever amount of time. We've talked about The Simpsons. I talked in an episode about my epilepsy. Like, I don't, like, with this platform, like, just like Seinfeld was, or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, or The Simpsons, or Family Guy, you can talk about anything. It doesn't box you in. And I think remaking that show would box you into what has already been created. And I think that defeats the purpose of what it is.
Yeah, and to try and try and like recapture like kind of the magic and like the comedy styling of Seinfeld, it would almost be sad.
Yeah, it would.
Like to try and watch someone else do that.
Yeah.
Because Seinfeld had a unique voice, and like the show, the comedian, he has a unique voice, but also the show had this unique storytelling or way to tell stories each week, and yeah, just you couldn't put someone to try and be Seinfeld or Elaine or Kramer, any one of them. Hell, even friggin' Newman. Like you couldn't get anybody to replay Newman.
Okay, I have a game now. I was going to ask you, who would you recast for the Seinfeld characters? I already have my Newman. It's Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill is Newman in my version of Seinfeld.
Okay.
But it's like super bad Jonah Hill when he's like 15. I know it's not the same now, but yeah. Who would you recast for Seinfeld? So go off the four friends, the friends, and then you can do Newman, or you can do like one or two extra characters if you want to. But who are the main cast of Seinfeld recast?
I don't even know. I would think like Seinfeld would have to be a decently popular like stand-up comedian nowadays, and I just don't know. Like, I guess John Mulaney is the first person that comes to mind. Thinking of like,
damn, okay,
like kind of an everyman. Even though he's not really. It doesn't really have an everyman kind of look. He's a pretty unique fella. But I do enjoy him.
I think Nick Kroll or John Mulaney could be George.
Okay. Let's see who else. For Elaine, I think there's a comedian named Lauren Lapkus.
Yeah,
she's hilarious. I think she is so fucking talented. She could. I don't know if you ever listen to Comedy Bang Bang podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
or she has like a couple of her own podcasts. She's just awesome. She's a really good voice talent, good improviser. Just I love her to death. So I would maybe use her for Elaine. Kramer. He's God. I don't know who would do Kramer.
So I have a few that I think Elaine. You could do Sarah Silverman. Partially because they kind of look. You could just have the brunette comedian again. I mean, that's kind of casting the same person. For Kramer, I think a good comedian or someone just to play Kramer, you have to get someone who's just like. I wouldn't want to because I don't want to see this person get any more roles, but Charlie Sheen. But he's already... I don't want Charlie Sheen to get more work because I think he's a nut, but I think someone else who could play that kind of... There's not many other people like Michael Richards who could do that Kramer kind of person. Comes to mind, you could almost do... I don't know. Who would you do as Kramer? George, you could... You know who Tom Segura is?
Yes.
You could do Tom Segura for George.
Oh, there's another comedian. I can't think of his name right now. But he would be a really good George because he's similar stature, and he's actually from like New York or Jersey area. John Gabris.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I think he'd play a decent George.
Oh, Nicolas Cage for Kramer.
Oh man, he's insane enough to do it.
Yeah, and I think Nicolas Cage, if you gave him the right directing and stuff, he could be hilarious. Like, actually, I don't even know if he'd know he's hilarious.
Yeah, just actually, you tell him to play it as straight as possible, and you'd probably capture him being just like insanely funny.
Yeah, I think so. You could have John Mulaney as Jerry Seinfeld, Sarah Silverman. Who's your George?
John Gabris.
John Gabris, and then Nicolas Cage, and then Jonah Hill as Newman. Kaboom. Hey, if you're listening out there, Fox, give us a lot of money. We're good at casting. But yeah, so I think that's a show that would never work. Like Friends. I don't think Friends would work because there's a show that already redid it, and it's called New Girl.
And New Girl's great.
Yeah, and I think, isn't the last episode... Oh, God bless you. Isn't the last episode next week or something? The series finale?
I know it's coming to an end. I don't know if it's next week or not.
It's within the next few months.
Okay.
But yeah, I think those are shows you shouldn't What are shows that you want to see rebooted? It can be a cartoon as well.
I think Reno 911 would do well with a different group of like a different comedy troupe, because like a lot of the cast from Reno 911 was from The State, which was a super old MTV sketch comedy show, which was amazing at the time, still is. But yeah, I think if they took it doesn't even have to be in the same comedy troupe like people to do it, but I think if they recast Reno 911 with just a bunch of different like great improvisers, I think that would work really well.
I think it would work well with the Apatow crew, like the Seth Rogen, Bill Hader, kind of like part Lonely Island guys. Like you can even get Andy Samberg, but the Judd Apatow crew that's always in those, like Paul Rudd, like those guys would be great in a Reno 911 thing. I don't know.
I can't even think of, just like, because the guys from The State, like Tom Lennon and Kerry Kinney, like they all just like, I can't think of anybody else but like their faces for those people.
Yeah.
And Reno 911 was such a damn good show.
Oh my god, that show is really good. That's one of those shows that was always on. That's just like so good. And I didn't appreciate it enough when it was on. But I think as sorry, there's the internet's breaking, and I think as Lieutenant Dangle, you could do Seth Rogen, or he's like too old. I think he's too old.
Yeah, he kind of seems a little bit old though.
You could do Paul Rudd.
He's a lot older than he seems.
How
I think he's in his like mid to late 50s, and the dude looks great.
Okay, we're looking at Paul Rudd.
I could be wrong about that, but I know he's a lot older than what he looks.
Paul Rudd is, holy shit, he's 49.
Oh, he's only 49? Okay.
Whoa.
Still,
Paul Rudd looks like he's 30.
Yeah.
Damn, Paul Rudd. That's incredible. There's pictures on Google of him like 15 years ago and him now, and he looks exactly the same. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got some sort of voodoo magic going on where he's not aging.
Yeah, there's picture 1997 and 2018. The only difference is he grew a beard. And it's not even a beard. It's like what I have. What? Okay. I have to get away from that. That's freaking me out. Okay. What are other shows that you want to see, like an actual full-on reboot of the show? Like you can recast everything, but it's a new take on the same kind of show, but it has the same basic idea.
My only other one I had was a movie, actually.
Okay.
Major League, speaking of Charlie Sheen earlier.
Yeah.
I think that could work well in today's world. I mean, because there's not a whole lot that keeps it like within its time.
Yeah.
Because it's just a comedy baseball movie with kind of ensemble casts of just goofabouts on each position of the baseball team. But I think that could work well in today's world.
Yeah.
Even keeping the same characters. I mean, you got Rick Vaughn played by Charlie Sheen. Just recast him as some other what Charlie Sheen was considered back then, kind of like the bad boy. I don't know who that would be nowadays.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Major League can be done. Would it be done well? Probably not.
Yeah.
Because Major League is awesome the way it is. And, I might just kind of put that in between want and don't want for remakes, but it could be done.
Mm-hmm.
Should it? I don't know.
I think it'd be cool. I think it might be really successful because there's not much like that right now. I think
sports movies are kind of not around a lot anymore.
I think, a really good comedy sport. I think the last good ones, I mean, there's probably some, and I'm not naming them, and someone's going to get upset, but the Will Ferrell comedy sports movies like Blades of Glory, Talladega Nights, Semi-Pro, I'm sure there's even like Happy Gilmore, which is Happy Madison, something else. But all of those are such good sports movies. And if you get another one of those, like a really funny sports movie, it'll do like so well at the box office.
It's a formula that just works every time, basically. Yeah. They all have the exact same formula and pretty close to all the storyline.
Yeah.
Person that doesn't belong in that sport gets into the sport, faces off against, the villain who's supposed to be like the greatest or like the best person currently in that sport, beats that person, gets the girl. Bam.
Yeah, and it always works. And it's one of those like formulas where it's like, this is perfect. And yeah, I think that's one of those things that you should try to find again. I think another thing that you could reboot and have it really, really work that we don't have right now, and I say this knowing that they have already kind of rebooted, is Borat. And there's a show Sacha Baron Cohen is doing, is Who is America right now. It's on like Stars. And it's like he does a bunch of different characters. He interviewed Bernie Sanders in a character, and Bernie didn't know who it was until like afterwards. But it's really funny. But if they did another version of like what Borat is, like a full length in 2018, that would be hilarious. Because
yeah, and I think it definitely needs to be someone. Well, I don't know. I mean, I would have thought that after Bruno, Sacha Baron Cohen would be recognizable by anybody that was on their guard, but apparently not, because he's duping people in the Senate and Congress in general into saying the most just disgusting shit possible. I mean, thankfully, I don't think Bernie made an ass of himself.
No.
I haven't watched any of the episodes, but I've read the recaps of some of the awful stuff that these people have been saying.
There's one where he plays this Sacha Baron Cohen. I don't know where he's from originally, but he's Jewish.
England, I think.
Oh, he is. He's British?
I think he's English, yeah.
I don't know if I've ever heard him in his normal accent, but he plays this Israeli character who's like this Israeli special ops tactical guy who goes to schools, and he's like, in Israel, we give kids guns. And he's like, I think all children should have guns, not teachers. And he goes to people in Congress, and he's like, he does all this stuff, and then he gets them to say, shoot kids. He's like, happy shooting kids, and does all this stuff with actual people in Congress. And apparently a lot of people have gotten in big trouble because they've said some really horrible stuff. And I think it's great to have, like, to catch people in actually an organic setting and make people say really bad stuff because it's what they're going to say. And I think it's perfect. I think another thing, a movie that could be rebooted really, really, really well, I think you could definitely do a lot of heist movies again and stuff. I think those could be all rebooted, like Ocean's, the Ocean's movies with, they already kind of did them, but you could do the Italian Job again. You could do The Sting. You could do all these things because people loved Baby Driver. I didn't really like that movie, but you can do heist movies because I think that's coming back.
On that note, I loved Baby Driver. I think without Edgar Wright's kind of like living music video take on the storyline, it would have been a pretty mediocre movie at best. But I thought Baby Driver was brilliant.
Yeah, you know what? I think a lot of that movie really worked. I'm writing something. One second. This guy, I can't watch it. I wrote it backwards. There's a certain character in the movie and a certain actor who will not be named. There's another comedian who will not be named that I would love to have cast for George in Seinfeld, who's a balding guy, who is a very good comedian, except is not a good guy anymore. Both of which will not be named on the podcast. This character that's in Baby Driver, he's also in the movie Seven. He's also in Usual Suspects. He's in a lot of things. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. He's in House of Cards. He's fantastic in that movie. But now if you watch the movie and you're like, oh, this guy's a huge piece of shit, I think it ruins it. Also, I don't really get the love thing in the end. The with Baby and the waitress. I think it's really cool, the final scenes of the movie where he's like, my name is Miles. I think that's cool because he's a driver in Miles. I think that's really cool. But in general, it's really cool. I like Jamie Foxx, and I like how, spoiler, John Hamm is the bad guy. I really love that. And I think John Hamm is
a terrific bad guy.
Yeah, he's so good in that movie. He's so likable as well. He's like the worst, but he's so likable. And John Hamm, for all of you out there who don't know, I think I've mentioned on the podcast before, John Hamm has a real hammer. You should look up those pictures. Just look up John Hamm pants. It's ridiculous. This guy's a machine. There you go, John Hamm. You're welcome. Not jealous at all. I don't know what you guys are thinking. But yeah, so those are good. I think things that should never be rebooted, most cartoons. Never reboot Rugrats. Never reboot Hey Arnold. Never reboot, like, Ren and Stimpy. never reboot Rocko's Modern Life. Also, a lot of people who don't know, this is aging me as a kid who was in the 90s.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but they did do a Ren and Stimpy one about 15 years ago, maybe.
Oh, no.
It was bad.
Okay,
it was very
good.
bad. It was on MTV. Hey Arnold is getting a reboot.
No.
Rocko's Modern Life did get a reboot. I think it already came out. I have not watched it yet. Rocko's Modern Life is one of my favorite cartoons as a child. So, yeah, you're swinging and missing.
Oh no, I didn't know that. Oh man, I know Rugrats kind of got a loose reboot with the Rugrats Grown Up thing. I never actually watched it because I don't want to destroy my childhood. But yeah, like those shouldn't ever be rebooted. I'm just trying to think. You know what should get a reboot that I want to see? Even you can do a follow-up. I want to see Malcolm in the Middle now. I loved Malcolm in the Middle. And I went back. It's on Netflix. Or maybe not as it is anymore. But I went last year and watched all of it again. They should go back to it, even with Bryan Cranston and everybody. Because I know Cloris Leachman is the grandma. And like Frankie Muniz was like on Dancing with the Stars or something. Like they should get all of those people back to like where they are 10 years later.
Oh yeah, and like it's like what's Dewey up to nowadays? Like
exactly.
That kid's probably not employed anywhere.
Yeah, like Dewey's probably working at like the CVS where his mom was.
Yeah, and Reese, like I haven't seen either of those guys. Hell, even the oldest brother, I haven't seen him anywhere.
Yeah, Francis, where is he at? Okay, we're doing a deep dive. Let's go right now. I'm on IMDb. Let's go. Malcolm in the Middle. So Malcolm in the Middle premiered in 2000, which makes me feel old. So Justin Burfield is Reese. The last thing he was in was in 2010. He was in a show, Sons of Tucson.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, it was a TV series. I think it only had a few episodes and got canceled. But yeah, wow, he hasn't been in anything since 2010. Maybe he's just living off that money, or just like kind of like, you know how Rick Moranis, who's Lord Helmet in Spaceballs, and he's like Honey, he's running the kids. He stepped away from acting because family stuff. He like wanted to take care of his kids.
I think his wife died of cancer or something, and he wanted to be a dad.
Yeah, and he stepped away. I mean, that's super cool. Like that is really, really, really like honorable. So their Dewey is Eric Sullivan, and the last thing he was in 2012 or 2010 rather. Then we can go to Francis, who's Christopher Masterson, and he's in something this year. I'd Like to Be Alone Now, which is a movie, and there's no other really known people in it, but it's something coming out in 2018. He's in that. And yeah, he's had stuff every single year since then. Probably not to much huge success, but yeah, he's in stuff.
His brother Danny Masterson was on That 70s Show.
Yeah, he was,
and ended up being a complete piece of shit because I think he was like charged with raping someone.
Yeah, who's the guy on That 70s Show who did gay porn?
Oh, I don't know about that.
Was it that? Maybe I'm wrong. There's one of those people who was in that group, like That 70s Show, and that whole like teen comedy era. One of those people who was like pretty big did a bunch of gay porn, got big drugs. But yeah, I feel like that happens if you're like in Hollywood and you're like 10 and you have the world given to you, and then like you meet the wrong people. Like I'm sure it's so easy because like that's not the real universe, you know.
Yeah, you hear a lot about those kind of sad stories about those child actors just not making it out without a lot of mental scars.
Yeah,
or even making it out alive.
Yeah, Justin Timberlake is one of them. Like Selena Gomez is another one. I'm not a huge Selena Gomez fan, but she was like a Disney kid, and she's like made out very unscathed. She's like pretty like, I mean, I don't like her music or whatever, but I don't think she's ever done anything terrible. She's just
besides date Justin Bieber.
Yeah,
crime against humanity, but
yeah,
she made it out.
Yeah, she made it out, and she's pretty normal probably. But yeah, her and Justin Timberlake, Zac Efron, the Drake and Josh guys. Who is the fat kid? The fat kid's really normal now, and he has like a YouTube channel, and he's like, is he Josh or Drake? I don't know. No, he's Josh.
I never watched it.
I never really watched it either, but he's really funny. Like, I never thought that show was funny because it wasn't the right age for me. It just wasn't on at the right time. But if you watch him now, he's incredibly funny. Like, he should do stand-up because he just has some really stuff. I'm like, that's very clever. I'm trying to think of child actors who didn't completely fuck it. Frankie Muniz, Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, he just went away.
Yeah, he actually got into a car crash, really bad one. He got into driving race cars and then like had a brain injury and stuff after he was done with the show. And now he flips properties and makes a shitload of money in the Hollywood Hills. Seriously, that's what he's doing. He flips properties and has made, I think, twice as much money off of that than he ever did as an actor. Yeah. And I think the most successful person out of Malcolm in the Middle is Bryan Cranston.
Oh, for sure. And Breaking Bad belongs on my don't you dare reboot it list.
Never. If they ever try to do that, I will automatically leave the film industry, leave the television industry, because I'm like, there are so many better ideas. Don't redo this one. I think, yeah, that's like a big one. I think there's a few others that are just never, ever, ever touch these shows, like Lost. Don't redo Lost. I like Lost. I know most people hate it. Don't ever redo Lost. Don't do that. Don't redo Dexter.
If we could just keep the first 4 seasons and forget everything that happened after, if we could just do that, that'd be great.
Okay, I'm saying it here on this episode now. The next episode of See What Sticks with Ben. Our topic. It's going to be horrible endings to good TV shows, or good endings to horrible TV shows and movies. There's like really good movies and I'm like, why did it end like this? Or shows like Breaking Bad. We're not going to spoil it here. I did not like the end of Breaking Bad. I hated the end of Dexter. The end of Seinfeld.
Dexter was comically bad. Like, it was like, these writers cannot think this was a good idea.
No.
Like, it was almost like, all right, let's just get this over with.
Yep. Okay, that's the next topic. Like, have you seen the end of Seinfeld?
Yes.
Not good.
No.
I think the end of Lost is one of the better endings of any show.
At least it's creative.
Yes, it is
like,
very
it's
creative.
Going for it, if anything.
Yeah. But that's the topic for our next episode, and I think we'll just have to go back and just watch a bunch of last episodes of shows and be like, what the hell happened before this? But yeah. Yeah, there's a bunch of shows, but I think that's pretty much my list. Oh, here's one. What do you think about the Star Wars reboots? There's 3 original Star Wars movies. What do you think about the other 7 that they've made?
So basically, we're talking like The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and Last Jedi?
Solo, but then...
Is that what we're getting at?
We're getting at those and the prequels, and then we'll finish the episode. So we'll do prequels first, and then those.
Okay, prequels...
Yeah.
Bad.
I think... Okay, the prequels are bad. I think the first one, The Phantom Menace, has some good stuff in there. There's some really good stuff going for that movie. I think the Ewan McGregor Obi-Wan stuff is pretty solid in general. I think that the idea that Anakin is just some dude, kind of like Luke was, is kind of a cool idea. And that's about it.
Yeah, I think Phantom Menace was the shiniest of the turds.
Yeah.
And they got progressively worse. And yeah, like you said, there's good things about it. Like, I thought the pod racing scene was entertaining.
Yeah.
But most everything else about those prequels, how Lucas just really dove into that kind of Senate, like the Senate and the
oh my god,
the inner workings of all of the government and all that. That's just boring.
Yeah.
Not entertaining at all.
Yeah, and I don't think he realized that those movies are for kids or for families. I don't know who he marketed those movies for. Like, the dumb Jar Jar Binks stuff is on one end, but then the boring political stuff is on the other end. And those two things don't balance each other. They're just opposites. Also, I like Darth Maul as a villain, but he has like 4 speaking lines. And it's Peter Serafinowicz, who's the roommate in Shaun of the Dead. That's the voice of Darth Maul.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's the roommate who's like the asshole in Shaun of the Dead, and he's also in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's one of the guys. Yeah, it's Peter Serafinowicz. Serafinowicz. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
it's that guy. He's the roommate in Shaun of the Dead, who's not Ed or Sean. But there is actually a 2-hour and 29-minute. It's called The Fall of the Jedi, a single film Star Wars prequel edit. You should watch it. It's surprisingly good. So someone took the 3 prequel movies and edited them down at 2.5 hours. You should watch it. If you want to show someone the prequels who may have never seen Star Wars, show them this one because it fixes 75 to 80% of the problems.
And probably a lot of that problem is just slicing off bullshit that's not needed.
Yeah, it does that. There's still a lot of bad CGI and like these big empty open expanses that couldn't exist in the real universe, like these giant buildings. Like in Lord of the Rings, I can buy it when they're in Moria and it's the biggest room you've ever seen in the universe, but like it's Lord of the Rings, it's a fantasy world. But this, like, you're in these weird temples. I'm like, how does this exist? Where are you? But yeah, those are bad. I think Revenge of the Sith, the ending is kind of cool, how they deliver Luke and Leia. I think that's a very interesting scene. And Anakin going to Darth Vader, I think it's dumb how it happens, but I think it is interesting to see that piece. Like those little connecting things. But why'd they add Chewbacca into that movie? What are you doing?
Fan service.
Yeah. And the whole Palpatine thing with him turning the Emperor, I think it's stupid. But
yeah.
What do you think about the new ones, the Disney ones, before we go?
Okay. Force Awakens, I like it. I see the criticism. Like I recognize and kind of understand the criticism, and that it's like essentially the same story as like A New Hope. Mm-hmm. But I thought, like, I love Rey. I love her character. I think she's acted very well. Finn, also a really good character. Yeah, it's definitely like not the best Star Wars movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it was better than all of the prequels.
Oh yeah,
and I immensely enjoyed it. And then I guess just going off of release date, Rogue One is one of my favorite Star Wars films.
Thank you. It is so good. It's
like probably number 2.
Yes,
behind like Empire.
Yes, it's because there's one lightsaber scene. And it's a war movie. Mm-hmm. And it's a small story that you don't need to get cosmic with, and it's really cool.
Yes. And spoiler alert, at the end, when Vader actually does something, it's badass.
It is the coolest thing.
Vader back to being a villain.
Yeah.
And I love that about it.
And like the lights, and Gareth Edwards did that. We talked about him at the beginning of the show. He does scale, like when you see the Death Star, you see the tiny little Star Destroyers, like that legitimately look like toys. Like it's so cool. And when you see the Star Destroyer above the city on Jeddah, so cool. Like why can't all of the Star Wars movies hit those marks? But yeah,
love Rogue One. And then I guess Last Jedi. My first viewing of it, I would say, like, if I'm giving it a grade scale, I was like, okay, B+. Like, this was different. You know, this was different than all the other Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then going back and thinking about it and watching it again, I fucking love that movie. Like, The Last Jedi is so great, I think, because it's so different and because Rian Johnson wanted to go this completely different route and make it his own movie.
I really, really, really do like it. One of the first podcasts I did was a review of The Last Jedi. And on there, I thought it was really good. I've seen it twice since then. I think it's even better. There's 2 scenes I don't like that I've started to like less, and 2 things. Oh, hello. Hi. There. Oh, okay. I will go. No, I will let you go. Oh, for those of you who don't know, Ben's wife is mad at me. So we will wrap this up in about 4 seconds. I do like that movie. I don't like Solo. I'm excited about the next one. Ben has to go to bed because he's about to get in trouble. And yeah, so this is another episode. It's actually the longest episode ever. We're just pushing the mark. And yeah, that was another episode of C06 that ended very abruptly because I don't want my co-host to get in trouble.
She's not always like this, I promise.
No, it's all good. But yeah, so Ben, thank you very much. And we'll be probably on the next episode. Again, this is C06 Podcast about everything and nothing. I am Russell. You know how to get in contact with the show through the email and everything else. Thank you for listening. Ben, do you have anything to say?
Thanks for having me on as always. I haven't seen Solo yet. I'm looking forward to seeing that. That's it. Bye.
Okay, bye.